Exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome. You're tuned into Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balance with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on CNBC News, NBC News, and NBC Sports Radio station, KCAA, home to the Asian Oprah, AM 1050, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, Audible, Tiki Live, Amazon Music, Rumble, Podchaser, JioSan, and more. Why so many places? Because I want to maximize my splatter zone for more hope and happiness. And that's what this show is about. I am on 573 consecutive weeks on the air. I'm so glad that anyone that said, and there were a lot of them, a show that didn't have gossip, scandal, political rhetoric, or K-words, Kanye talk was not going to survive. And I'm so glad that they're wrong. This is podcast number or show number 927. So I am grateful for that. And if you've noticed, there's someone special in the studio. She's my once a month parenting, loss, infertility. Did I get all 3 certification coaching? I think there might be a couple more, but you know her by now. Please welcome back to my studio every last Wednesday of the month, Yarona Boster. Good morning.
Good morning. And one of these days, I'm going to ask you how many breaths it takes to do that intro. Have you counted yet? 1, 2, 3. I was trying
just
to count.
one, I think. I mean, I try to do it in one, conserving. Good morning, Ismail Cortez from Riverside. Thank you for tuning in, which reminds me, you can actually live stream and get yourself acknowledged when you stream live with us on my LinkedIn, Facebook, but my home central that houses all 927 shows. And that's my YouTube channel. So go free subscribe. You'll get an alert every weekday morning for this show about hope and happiness. So I am going to just jump right into having breakfast with us. Yeah. And please play along if you'd like. This is a Blisscipline that I have been encouraging you to do now for almost a year. I think we've been doing this. So what are you specifically grateful for that's outside of yourself? So that's what the top of the button is. And then we go to what we do before we go to bed. Appreciation is what we like about ourselves. So we're not constantly out there looking for likes, literally. So I am grateful I'm going to have breakfast with my bonus mom and dad at one of my favorite breakfast places that defines fluffy pancakes. And I'm going to hit them up for a sponsorship before I mention who it is. That's what I'm grateful for.
I am really grateful for yesterday. Yesterday was Federal Advocacy Day, and it was a stunning testament to the amount of congressional meetings one person can have in a day while glued to a chair. I didn't move. I went from one meeting to that, and I was just so grateful to be in a space where my voice and all the other hundreds of advocates across this entire country had a space on Capitol Hill to be heard.
Wonderful. Give me the top 3 things that were up for change.
Oh, so the issues we were talking about were access to care, coverage at work, and removing barriers to access to treatment for military and veterans, because there's a lot of restrictions when it comes to that.
Wow. And if someone missed it, because they weren't
They can do
paying
next year.
attention the last time you were on, where would they go to support all of those things?
Resolve.org. Resolve is the National Infertility Association, and it's specifically a nonprofit for patient advocacy. And it is amazing. And we do so many things. We do support groups. We run free support groups. We have so many resources dedicated to so much assistance around infertility. And we recently found out, so the World Health Organization just upgraded. It is now 1 in 6 people globally affected by infertility, by the disease of infertility. 1 in 6.
1 out of 6.
Yep.
Is it higher in America versus other countries?
Statistically, I'm not 100% sure about that. So
Okay.
I don't want to make a case for that. But globally, when we found out that changed, it literally just changed at the beginning of April. They just came out with that. But keep in mind that 1 in 6 goes to, because it's from the World Health Organization, it goes to people who usually are of heteronormative couples. So it doesn't necessarily incorporate people who are single by choice and want to receive assistance, for infertility, for fertility assistance. It doesn't go into the LGBTQ community, and it doesn't go into self-reporting people, because the thing about it nationally is that we do not have any kind of national protocol. So as a result, and that's one of the reasons why we do this, is to really try to push forward legislation around access to infertility treatment. There's the Adoption Care Credit Refundability Act. There is the John Lewis Every Child Deserves a Family Act. Oh my goodness, there's so many pieces of legislation that we've been working really hard to support. But Resolve is just one of the most amazing organizations on this in this country, and honestly, in my personal opinion, worldwide, because they're really dedicated to ensuring that everybody who wants to build a family has the opportunity to do so. And that includes adoption access. Did you know that our veterans, and I'm sorry I'm going off on this, but
No. That's why I asked the question. I think this is relevant and important for us to talk about.
Our veterans have no access to support for adoption assistance. None. Completely none. And our military, there's severe restrictions on their adoption access. And
why?
So, that's a really great question. And it's one we ask the legislators every single year and every single day, in all honesty, because we don't just do this one day a year. We do this. Resolve is committed to it. And ASRM, the American Society for Reproductive Medicine, they are dedicated to trying to find out more about the why behind why it's so difficult. Especially when we understand that families of median income are usually the ones who want to adopt the most, but they cannot afford to do so because adoption is so expensive.
Right. And mostly, it says here, mostly, this is from the WHO. So this is a reputable news source, which I always ask people to look. If you can see it right now, that's the 1 in 6 she was talking about, folks. And it says prevalence. It doesn't list by country, but it does say 17.8% in high income countries and lower 16.5 in low and middle. But it's high no matter where, right? That's way higher than I would have guessed.
Yeah. Now one of the things we do know is that people are trying to build their families later. So of course, time is not on our side when we're trying to build our families. So that is true. But we also do understand that there's a lot of new restrictions that are coming out as a result of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And there are a lot of states in this country that are trying to restrict access to infertility treatment and care and IVF. Because if they're going to assign personhood to a fertilized egg, that's a problem for IVF. But if you ask any doctor, we know that a fertilized egg does not become a human for so many variety of reasons. When I did IVF, the one cycle that I did, because it cost us $20,000 out of pocket, we had 4 abnormal embryos. Abnormal embryos means that they were chromosomally abnormal. They would have never made it to fetus stage, let alone live birth stage. We know that about 1 out of 4 women are experiencing miscarriages. So when you think about that, the amount of embryos that are created both in the body and out of the body that actually are able to sustain until life, until birth, there's so many more embryos that are created, again, both in and out of the body, that are not sustainable life.
Mm.
And it still takes the fetus to the uterus to actually gestate. And we had people who came yesterday, stories where we had one person in New Jersey who she had and this is just one of many stories. She had a stillbirth at 9 months.
Mm.
Of course she wanted that baby. I mean, they were devastated. They're still dealing with the PTSD. So I apologize for going off on it, but it is something that is near and dear to me.
Yeah, no. I'm glad you're doing it because it's so timely and relevant. And I really want to I just started to search because it's my perception, and I may be totally wrong on this, but from what I hear and the clamoring that I hear, that it's predominantly men who have these dogmatic, rigid, holier than thou shalt not, how dare you.
Yeah.
I don't know, I could be wrong, but when I turn when I hear about the news of the people who are so against a woman's right to make decisions for her body, more often than not, it's a religious a slant and a male. So I don't know if you've experienced that.
I have, and I've also experienced misogynistic women who have been conditioned to believe that the male role always must dominate. And it is very sad that we've been conditioned to that. But I think that is millennia worth of the conditionment. I think that's actually in all honesty, I think that's the biggest lie we ever told ourselves as humankind, that women are less than men. Because the truth is, women, between our spaghetti brain functionality, which means that we have the capacity to think about multiple things and integrate a multitude of different things at the same time, whereas men with that more box brain, it's like, I got to open one box, deal with that thing, then close it, then move on to the next.
Yeah.
With our physical capacity for labor pains alone, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but I think this is wonderful. There's a group that talks about period pain, and they go around, they took a machine and they simulated what period pain feels like, and they put it on men. And the funniest thing is they'll put it on women and men at the same time, and they'll up it to the same level. And the women are just standing there like, yeah. And the men are like, like dying.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
One of my favorite things to see, because
Oh,
it just proves that when women complain about pain, especially with period pain, doctors are like, it's normal. When so many women have endometriosis that's not diagnosed until their later years, many years later, in fact. My sister has a dear friend who wasn't diagnosed with endometriosis until way into her 30s, 40s, I believe. I'm not even sure. But so pain should never be dismissed. And
what
a
is
doctor
what
is
is
not. What's that?
what is endometriosis?
Endometriosis is a disease that happens in the uterus, and I am not as well versed about explaining the disease.
Okay.
But it is really, it's a very it's
Debilitating.
It's a very debilitating disease, and it often causes debilitating period pain. So, when women are complaining of like cramps and things like that, okay, yes, there's that. And we have learned how to handle that over the course of our lives. But when it's so debilitating that you're laying in bed and you cannot function and you cannot stand up without crunching over in pain, or you're barely functional through it, or you have to pop 10,000 Midol to get through the day, that is not normal. It is not normal, and you need to seek assistance through an OBGYN. And you need to seek assistance through an OBGYN who understands endometriosis. And Now, there's also polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS. So polycystic ovarian syndrome and endometriosis are two pieces that really lend a direct hand to the infertility struggles.
Yeah, that's what it just, the NIH is saying here to support you. And it's a disorder in which tissue similar to the tissue that lines the uterus grows outside of the uterus in places where it doesn't belong.
Yeah.
So that's what it is, and it does affect infertility. I love learning new stuff, so
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't mind the segue at all
Okay.
because I think it's important for women, especially, to begin to advocate and right the ship that has been tilted to the male brain
Yeah.
and balance it out. We're not talking about, women ruling the world, or maybe we are, but we are just at least looking for the balance. So
Yeah.
women aren't told it's all in your head, or you're just being emotional, or quit being hysterical and
Right.
fuck it up, and be
Yeah.
a man kind of attitude, which really
I-
sucks.
I tell you something, I try to tell men, imagine being kicked in the balls 10 times a day and being asked to continue to function all day long. And because that when you cannot empathize with somebody else's physical pain, you minimize it. So because you're saying, well, that person's still on their feet, so what's the problem? It is very hard to simulate physical pain. It's also very hard to simulate even things like vision issues. Just the other day, I found a really great clip of a doctor who did a video where he showed somebody with corrective lenses, like what it actually looks like to see through that person's through that person's vision. And I sent it to my husband because I said, so this is my vision without my glasses. And he was like, whoa.
Yeah.
We can
What?
only describe so much, right?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, back to breakfast.
Back to breakfast.
I am grateful, speaking of eyes, that we finally figured out why my eyes have had some special opportunities for improvement. And I just financed a new set of eyes. Those of you who know, I had posterior subcapsular cataracts, and so my LASIK that worked for 25 years stopped improving, and I lost 65% of my vision in like 3 months. So then I had emergency cataract surgery, which corrected it almost, except that I still am not clear, and I seem to have patches of dark and white. And so I went to a great doctor for retina, ruled out my retina are fabulous, but my cornea are a little corny. So I didn't say horny, I said corny. And that is why, because of the LASIK, and they didn't know, you don't know in those days. And I had a -9. I don't know what minus you are.
Wow.
What
Well,
minus are you?
at my worst, I was almost legally blind, but I actually corrected to a -6.75 on my
Okay.
left eye and -4.25 on my right. So,
Were you over -9?
at the time that I was almost legally blind, I was 11, so I don't remember. My
Wow.
mom was
Okay.
7.
Yeah. Because -13 with correction, I believe, is legally blind.
Yeah, I
I
was
was
very close.
-9 without correction, -4 is legally blind or something like that. I'm not going to look it up, but I'm grateful that I just financed a new set of their
So exciting.
scleral lenses that are going to reshape your cornea. They sit on fluid on your eye. It's a very interesting process, not cheap and not covered by insurance, but my eyes are the window to my soul and my life. So it's one of those things where I'm grateful that the technology is incredible. And I'm
Amazing.
going to hit them up for a sponsorship before I tell you who it is. Half kidding, but yeah, hit me up. Come join me Friday if you have any questions about anything that comes on the show, or how to be on the show, or how to start a broadcast, or how to write a best-selling book. I do my Get Happy Hour every Friday at 7 online. Just go to drmarissa.life and it's free, and you'll get a free audiobook copy of my best-selling book, 8 Ways to Happiness from Wherever You Are. Sorry, commercial there. In the gratitude. Last gratitude, Yarona. And then you're grateful for your upcoming book, and you're grateful for your coaching that you do at www.footprintscoaching.org.
Yes.
There. I just gave you
Thank
your
you.
commercial. How's that?
Thank you. I appreciate it because I'm terrible at selling myself. I'd rather just have conversations with people. You know, my marketing team is always like, sell yourself.
That's right, as you should. Hey, what's up, Doc Orville Nation? Thank you for checking in. And we've got Inspiration TV, hand pink waving. Thank you. Peace out, waving over here. Thanks for joining us. We have Yarona Boster, my parenting, infertility, and loss expert, certified coach in all three. She's here today. We're actually going to talk about parenting and emotional intelligence in kids, but we're struggling to get through breakfast today because we keep going on very important and interesting things. So we finished gratitude. Let's go to the bottom of the bun. Okay. What do you like about yourself? And feel free to play along, Orville Nation and Inspiration TV and Ishmael Cortez out of Riverside. What do you like about yourself? And the reason why I asked to do this, I believe it is the foundation of mental health is self-care, self-love, self-approval. And Michelle Obama and Oprah agree with me. I saw the Netflix special, and it's so affirming to hear literally the same thing that I am talking about from the lips of two incredibly beautiful, inside and out, powerful women. One that I'm honored to have the honorable moniker of Asian Oprah. When I was introduced to her, Michael Bernard Beckwith introduced me to her as the Asian Oprah. I have not met Michelle Obama, but I'll tell you that special on Netflix, I got insight into this woman in a way that she is so real and beautifully real. So if you haven't watched it, that's your homework. I'm going to actually go through it on Friday on my Get Happy Hour at 7 if you want to join me, drmarissa.life to sign up. Thank you for the finger. Somebody just gave us a finger, not that one, a thumbs up. So Thank you for that. And I appreciate my ability to take any idea and run with it.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate flexibility, my flexibility. I love having conversations with people. So I'm always willing to go off the rails and then try to reel ourselves back onto the rails again. So I appreciate my ability to go with the flow too.
And we'll just do one more because we haven't gotten to the topic yet. And I know you have a lot to say that's empirically based. So we'll get to that. I appreciate that no matter how I feel, I always feel better because of the ability to be open to learn more. I love learning new things. There's nothing that ups my day than going, I didn't know that. That's so cool. So I love that about myself.
Yeah, love that. Me too.
Last one. What do you like about yourself?
I love that too, because the truth is that my hope is when I'm like in my 80s, if I make it there, that I will say to myself, I didn't know that. I'll still be saying that in my 80s. I would love to be able to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Thank you for having breakfast with Yarona Boster and I this beautiful, whatever day it is. Okay, here we go. Topic for today's show is
emotional learning. It's so funny. I was thinking about this. My son recently heard somebody, that emotional damage. Have you heard that? Emotional damage. You haven't heard that one? Oh, he's hysterical. Is his name Michael Chen? Michael. Oh man,
I'll get it. Keep talking.
He talks about he does clips on emotional damage, and it's hysterical. Like it's so funny. But it's all about that parental emotional damage. But what I find really funny is my son was saying it the other day, and he's like, emotional damage from a 5-year-old. It's hysterical. And I'm like, where did you hear that? Apparently he heard it on like there was a Minecraft thing or whatever, and a YouTuber was doing a Minecraft thing. So it was funny. And it made me think a lot about this. And this is something I've been talking a lot about lately, and where emotional intelligence comes from with our children. And this is definitely going to be a huge component in my book. And I believe that emotional intelligence, some of the most incredible leaders of this world know how to utilize emotional intelligence in a way where they bring out the best in the people who support them. And I think that in order to build better humans, we all need to learn what emotional intelligence is and how to cultivate it, both for our future generations and in ourselves. And we do talk a lot about that these days, and empathy and things like that. But, one of the things that I've been learning a lot more about is, well, one I coined called calm compassion. And the other one is about the emotional contagion. So when I think about emotional intelligence, it encapsulates empathy, calm compassion, and the emotional contagion. So empathy, we know what empathy is about. It's the platinum rule as opposed to the golden rule, right? The golden rule is treat others as they want to be treated, as you would want to be treated. The platinum rule is treat others as they would want to be treated, which steps up your game to the empathy level, because it says you need to learn how that person is feeling, what's they're interested in, what makes them tick, to be able to give them what they need, not give them what you need. For instance, I'm an extrovert. My husband's an introvert. When we think about like how to decompress, it's two very different things. Same thing for my son. His decompression looks very different than mine. His how to work on his emotional needs and how to function when he's emotionally dysregulated and he's disengaged and he's having a meltdown or a tantrum looks very different. The utilization of the strategies that we use for him are very different than what I need. So that's really important. And that really, we strive for emotional intelligence by first tapping into that empathy.
Mm-hmm. And I'll just chime in here. I actually use the golden rule. What's the golden rule? He who has the most gold rules. Just kidding. But the platinum rule, platinum costs more than gold, and platinum cards have higher membership fees. So, when you said it, it made it sound that it was on par. And I just want to emphasize that if you want to be really good at this, you have to put more effort. Platinum rule is more work than the golden rule. And that's the thing that people, who are brought up with the majority rules, that's the golden rule, right? You do unto them the way you would want to do unto yourself, which sounds good until that person is different than you. And what is important to you is not necessarily what's important to them, which is what Yarona is saying. So I just wanted to interject that little one.
I love that. And it's very interesting because you pointed out the difference aspect, right? We are so unique as a human species. There was a statistic, I believe it was 1 in 4 trillion. Humans are so unique that over the time that humans have evolved and have actually lived in this space, the humans that have both come and gone, we make up 1 in 4 trillion, meaning that the DNA, not just your DNA, but your lived experience, who you are, what you bring to the table, what you learn, what you think about, you are as unique as 1 in 4 trillion.
Wow.
And that's an amazing thought process to have, which means that if we are looking at it from a difference perspective, we're all different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Tapping into that means that we have to be more conscious of the fact that we are different from others. And that's not a bad thing. That means we get to continue the learning.
Yeah. And it's not the comfortable thing though, because we are also programmed to look for things that are similar and that we like and feel comfortable with. And so differences are not necessarily a good thing when you are raised in a majority conscious place. And when you have a majority homogenous place, that's not a big deal until you begin introducing diversity in. And my best example of that is walking by a microwave and you smell something that you're not familiar with. It's almost always the natural reaction to go, bleh. They should have rules about what go in the microwave and blah, 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 blah. And you have conflict in the workplace, and it because difference equals bad or less than, something to be afraid of. Look at our country right now. You don't know it, be afraid of it, right? They're coming to get you, and they're going to hold you up, and they're going to shoot you, and they're going to rob you. That's bullshit-talky. But that comes from the attitude of difference is bad. I'm not saying you go, oh, that smells bad, let me have some and try it. Difference is fabulous and to be, embraced. No, just the middle ground, man. Walk by, go, don't know what that is. What is that? Curiosity. Difference equals curiosity, something to be explored, something to learn new about. Not bad, not fab, just curious. That's
you know what that is? Do you know what that is? That's our survival mechanism. So humans evolved because our survival mechanism helped us literally recognize something different equated to something potentially dangerous for us. So it evolved out of our survival mechanism. However,
woolly mammoth.
Right. Or like saber-toothed tiger, you walk into a cave and you're like, that does not look like me, therefore must be something bad. And oftentimes it was. But as we've evolved as a species, we still maintain that survival mechanism and we bring it along with us. And unfortunately, there is that clashing now that's occurred, right? So I think we're in a progressive state where we are starting to evolve to a place where we can acknowledge that different is not always bad. Yes, that's my hope. My hope is that we're going to get to a place where it's like, when we need comfort, we surround ourselves with familiarity. When we need comfort and support meaning like we're going through a really difficult time, we surround ourselves with people who understand how we're feeling because they can be the deepest empathizers with us. Like when I run my infertility support groups, and that's one thing I hear all the time. Oh, I felt so isolated and alone. Now I found a group of people who get it because they've been there, experienced, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to meld that, the comfort and support with the amazing diversity that we are living with as a human species and a society, and to build that together, we can find a line to walk that is empathy, that is that true understanding that we can live in a world with where those two things can cohesively coexist.
Absolutely.
So that is desperately what I try to give to my child at all times. Different is not bad. Different can be something good. It can be something to be evaluated. And you can also find comfort in the familiarity of your loved ones and family.
And that is what we're talking about as emotional intelligence. So those of you who are like, what does that even mean? That's a great example of teaching your child. How do we get to world peace? We teach a child at home from get-go about differences being something to be curious about. Right. Don't try not to program your child to be suspicious and afraid of anything that is different than. That's why it's so important to have movies that have people of color, not as the bad people all the time. That's why it's important to have.
Or the extra character that gets killed off in the beginning.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to have Oscar-winning, actresses like Michelle Yeoh, so that, Asian kids can have role models that they see that I can actually get to where other people are. It's all intricately tied in, folks. This is not, this is not an ideal. This is why we have the consequences of racism, prejudice, Asian hate,
Yes. Yes.
the shootings,
Yes.
of an
Yes.
accidental knocking on the door. That's how we get there, because
Yes.
we as parents have not taken the opportunity to teach our children. It doesn't happen in school. Come on.
Right. It
You have
doesn't.
bullies
It
that teach
doesn't.
you stuff, right? So,
Right.
sorry, I was
And
on
and
my
and,
soapbox.
and I do, you know what? And I think that this is something so important that we need to go down this rabbit hole, because here's the thing. When you create a proper safety net at home, your child isn't afraid to explore the differences, because they understand that that's not something to be feared. It's something to be encouraged in exploration. Right.
Yes.
And when you build up your child to acknowledge and allow them to be an autonomous person, their exploration, if my son, decides that he is gay, or transgender, or whatever, or he chooses a partner of a different race or a different culture, different ethnicity, I'm gonna be thrilled that he's happy. That's the goal. If he's happy, that's the goal. Whatever else comes, it's his life to live. Is he happy? Is he content? Is he secure in his being, in his self-esteem, and all of those pieces first? But we live in an age where everything is instant gratification. And you know what that does? It breeds surface level satisfaction. And it does not get to the satisfaction that comes from empathy and true interpersonal connection. And I'm going to tell you this, one of the reasons why we went down the whole thing about infertility is because I needed it. I needed that support system. When I was struggling and we had just had our failed IVF cycle, I was in a place where I felt helpless to help myself. And you know what happened? I say this all the time to people. When you're helpless to help yourself and you turn around and you give back and you help others, it reciprocates on you, and you find healing and help and comfort in your helplessness to help yourself. And it becomes beautiful, and you become supported. So when I started doing that, even though we weren't at a place where we had our son, even though we weren't sure where our family building was going to lead, if it was even going to lend us to a place where we would be able to build more than just our fur babies, I was okay with that, because I realized that that's who I wanted to be. And I had a purpose. I had a purpose for being here as my own human self, with or without children. And so the other thing that I found I started using with my son, with the emotional intelligence aspect, was what I started to call calm compassion. And this comes in with the empathy. You can be compassionate. You don't have to cut yourself off from somebody else and be overly professional. You can tap into the human to human connection, but bring with it a level of calm compassion. So for instance, like
Let me just interrupt for a second. I just want to
sure.
highlight something you said.
Yeah.
Helping others as a way of helping yourself, right? That's the cornerstone 12-step programs are built on, right? Which is why it's successful for many. So, and then two, I wanted just to acknowledge you and recognize you for the work that you're doing and how you are helping other people with Dr. Marissa's Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award. And I don't know if I've ever given that to you. Have I ever given that
I
to you?
think you did in our very first interview before we became co-hosts.
Okay. Well, then I take it back.
Yeah,
Just
don't
kidding.
take it back. I need it.
No. And then I wanted just to say, this is very funny. So Orville is being irreverent with his humor about what I was saying about the microwave. Thank you very much for that. At least they're listening, right?
And at least you didn't put tinfoil in the microwave. Right?
And laughter is my favorite sound on the planet. But go ahead. Compassionate care.
Yeah, but it's not just compassion, it's calm compassion.
I'm sorry, calm compassion.
So a lot of times we go into the world with our professional veneer on. I am not really good at that. And one of the reasons I figured out why I'm not good at that is because I'd rather go in as my human self. First and foremost. So even if that means I show up messy or in my sweatpants or without my makeup on, and I've done that plenty of times, guys, I don't always wear my face of makeup, especially when I'm doing one-on-one coaching sessions, because I want to be my real self. But what I noticed was that, like EMTs, if an emergency is happening, right? And the emergency professionals, the first responders are rushing in. Imagine if they were like, oh my God, the house is on fire. Imagine if a fireman was like, ah, or an EMT was rushing into a medical situation going, oh my God, I think he's having a heart attack. That would not breed calm and it wouldn't de-escalate the situation. So when I talk about emotional intelligence with my son, I always think to myself, okay, how do I I am feeling frustrated, angry. And let me tell you, I'm going to be honest here. Sunday was a cluster.
Fork, cluster fork.
Yes, of just totally not. I couldn't find my calm. I was finding my compassion, but then I was like finding my anger and I was like, what is going on? And we had a beautiful, amazing day on Saturday. So I didn't, I knew something was emotionally off kilter with me and it was off kilter with my son and it was off kilter with my husband. And we just had a shiitake day and it was rough. And I didn't bring my calm compassion there. And so, I'm not saying it's always possible, but when it is possible to tap into that, it builds the allowance for the child to recognize their emotions in acceptance instead of you freaking out because they're freaking out and they're freaking out then because you're freaking out. And it's this, magnificent escalation of emotions. Because we don't have that happen in our professional world. When we're sitting in our professional cloak, it's a place where we can find that, but we need to find that in our homes too. We need to find that with our kids too. If our kid is upset because another kid bullied them and they come home and you're getting just as upset as they are not going to be able to look at the situation that occurred to them with a little bit more awareness, with a little bit more, they're not going to be able to separate themselves enough from the events that took place to be able to analyze what happened to them, how they felt about it, and what, if anything, they could do differently to navigate that space. And so what's going to happen is, let's say they come to you and they tell you, and you start crying and you start raging and you start saying, I'm going to call the school and blah, blah, blah. Then the validation of those emotions gets revalidated and they don't learn how to figure out how to calm the beast and assess the beast and figure out how to handle the beast. Yeah. So when we can bring that calm compassion in is so important, and it leads right into the emotional contagion. Have you heard of the emotional contagion?
No.
Okay.
I'm guessing it's my emotional spectrum that works like the dumbwaiter. Yeah.
Sort of, but it's about the contagion aspect. So there are mirror neurons, we call them, that are dispersed across the brain. When somebody walks into a space with a specific emotion and you start feeling that emotion and it starts bouncing off of one another back and forth. Imagine you're like at a grocery store and you're on a long checkout line. Bless you.
Thank you. I need it.
And the person in front of you is frustrated because the checkout person is really slow. They're like, ah, and you can hear them grumbling. You're like, and they're like, ah, and they turn to you and they go, this is so annoying. This line is so long. I've got so much to do. And you start to catch their feelings. You're like, and you were standing there just like, I'm waiting, and now you start to feel frustrated too. You're right. This is so annoying. That's the emotional contagion. And what's so interesting about it is that it has the power of social influence behind it. So it's not just catching one-on-one emotional contagions, but it's like when somebody walks into the room and they're like, oh my God, I'm seriously so excited for this event. And when they're truly feeling that way, it breeds into others. And then all of a sudden, people who were previously walking in and frustrated because they lost their this, or I can't find my PowerPoint. I'm supposed to present this and blah, 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 like what happened at a conference I attended. It's painful because it starts to change the energy in the room. What's very interesting about this is toxic positivity here has a detrimental atmosphere. And the reason for that is if you are pretending to feel an emotion when you walk into a room, guess what happens? If you're pretending to be positive, people don't feel the pretend positivity. They actually feel the underlying discordant emotion that's happening. So like if you're watching somebody on a show and they're like, we've got to do this and da da da, but something is happening underneath and they're not really actually feeling it themselves, you're going to feel a cognitive dissonance with that person. And because humans are intuitive, there's a reason our complex brains there's a reason for empathy. Empathy is actually because otherwise we'd be living in a society where it was literally survival of the fittest at all times, and it would just be a society of constant dominance, dominant, dominated.
Yeah.
But empathy is a complex emotion, and that has to do with our brain. So the emotional contagion, it can only function effectively when you're actually feeling it. If you are not
Authentically,
like
from the top. Okay, now I understand. Great. And you have a new fan. Orville says, well explained.
Awesome.
And it's so funny that you're talking about this because I just met someone who was with someone that we moved in similar, we shared motivational speaking stages, and I met that person, and there was an immediate, like the repelling ends of a magnet, and I thought it was me, right? I thought, and then I just got it validated that it was not me, that person had a similar thing, and the reason was exactly what you're saying. On the outside, they were, and all about all the positive self-development, but on the inside, I could feel the discordant, not all the way through, and that just went. I felt like I, was like the Matrix, like thrown back with that energy. And that's also what law of attraction talks about, the vibration. What's your true vibration about that? So wow, thank you. That like totally gave technical terms to the experience that I have just recently acknowledged. So,
and it's so funny, and the reason why I take it back to kids, because here's the thing. So if you're feeling really awful and you're having a terrible day and you try to pretend like you're not, yes, it can feel absolutely disingenuous. Absolutely. Orville Nation, thank you. So it is, and that's the thing. Allow your intuition to lead you with that. So when I'm not feeling great and I'm having a bad day, I verbalize that to my son, because then he knows, like if that changes, I verbalize that too. We have to verbalize these things to kids because kids are much more intuitive. They allow their intuition to lead until an adult tells them otherwise.
And that's the biggest disservice I think we do as parents, but it goes against every grain of what we're taught. We're taught that parents should be obeyed. They know what's right for you. They're there to protect you. They're there to guide you. It's your job to do that. And that's why sometimes, even for me, the law of attraction and Abraham Hicks talking about children know intuitively that they have, that they're connected to an energy that's bigger than them, that is conspiring for them, never against them, is a positive energetic source, is a positive thing for you. And then parents sort of go, no, you need to listen to me. You need to heed what I say, and don't cry or I'll give you something to cry about. And I know better than you. I know more than you. And we mess it up. But I know, growing up with that, it's ingrained in me. So it's tough for me to hear sometimes, even when you talk about, let your child have the emotional spectrum, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh God, because what I picture is these bratty children who
Yeah,
have
no, that's
tantrums, they get their way, and I
no,
just have to put
no.
that moose on the table.
I
That's not
know,
what we're talking
and
about.
listen, when a kid is out of control and they're tantruming, and a parent, there's a difference between a parent ignoring them and just being like, whatever, versus a parent actively trying to de-escalate the situation. Kids are going to tantrum. They are not emotionally regulated yet. Okay. So yes, thank you. The idea of verbalizing is so important. And the truth is, it's important for every relationship we have. It really is. It matters, if we're feeling a certain way. But here's where I believe it does the most damage: when parents aren't true to their emotions. When parents are in protective mode with their kids and something bad happens and they're feeling the bad that happened to them, let's say it's a loss, because I talk about loss all the time. Let's say somebody you love died, or somebody is struggling with a severe disease. Let's say grandma or grandpa is getting very sick, and the kid is picking up on those feelings, but the parents are like, everything's fine, and we're not going to tell you what's going on because you can't handle that. They do their child a disservice, and they don't allow the child to experience the real world events that are happening in that moment, and the emotional spectrum of that pain, sadness, the loss that's coming. So parents who cover that up for their kids, thinking that they're protecting them, are in fact doing them not just a huge disservice by pretending the thing isn't happening, but also not allowing their kids to be able to start to process the loss and to start to get really truly engaged in what's happening. You don't have to tell your kid every detail of the sickness, but you do have to make the reality of the circumstances real for them, so
Yeah,
that they can start to process
absolutely.
it with you.
Absolutely. And we're getting the 3-minute signal minus 20 seconds. So we're going to have to, my final word is the emotional spectrum for me is, if you don't allow a child to safely express anger, sadness, frustration, you're also capping off their ability to express joy, exhilaration, and inspiration. So it goes like this. So allow the spectrum or the range in in a safe way, in a balanced way. That's my final word. Yours?
Yes. Your emotions are valid, and so are your kids. So let them feel, and let them feel your emotions too. Because if they don't, and you can, again, with calm compassion, you can give them the supportive safety net as an adult with a wide variety of experience and a wide variety of knowledge, but allow them that safe space to process their emotions with you together, and see your tears, see your happiness, see your pain, and all of those things, and experience them together.
Wonderful. Thank you so much uh, um, for joining us. Man, we've got a great roasted honey peanut gallery today. Maria Orville Nation, Inspiration TV, thanks for joining us. Thank you, Yarona, as usual, for all of the great information. Every last Wednesday of the month, you will see her. I have other series. Come join me tomorrow. We're actually talking about Straight Talk with Sam Works and I. The topic is, what causes a man not to want to have sex with his wife? If the woman still wants it, what can she do? And do sexless marriages survive? That's the topic for tomorrow. Friday, as usual, tempting conversations with Alon Carter, the daughter of the founder of The Temptation. So just keep it here. It's all about balance. Peace in, peace out. World peace through inner peace. Go to footprintscoaching.org to find Yarona. If you have questions or coaching concerns, she will be able to help you. Now go and have the best day ever. See you tomorrow.